If you're like me and you're sitting on a 2021 MacBook Pro 14-inch and you're wondering, would it be worth it to swap that out for the newly released 15-inch MacBook Air? Stick around with me. We're going to go through all the details and I'll let you know what I think. Really quick before we move on, I'd like to ask you to please hit that thumbs up button for me. That would really help my content move out to a much broader audience, and I'd be so thankful if you could do that for me. Also, if you find any value in this content, please hit the subscribe button.
Yeah! Hit that subscribe button!
Okay, get out of here. Anyway, on with the video. Today, we're gonna go ahead and talk about the new 15-inch MacBook Air. Now, it is not my plan to do an overly analytical review of this. I wanna start off by giving you just a really brief explanation as to why I'm even considering doing this switch. Originally, when the refreshed 2021 MacBook Pro came out with Apple Silicon, I was super excited that I had managed to wait for the refresh to come out before I bought a new computer. I would have loved to have been able to purchase the 16, but let's be honest, that sucker is way outside of my price range. That's just what it is. But that never kept me from always hoping that someday there would be a more affordable option with a little more screen real estate. In comes the 15-inch MacBook Air, an actual larger screen computer that's still affordable, mind you, with some caveats. There are things that are certainly not the same between the two. Number one being screen quality, another thing being audio quality, but we'll talk more about that later. Now, as we all know, the MacBook Pro is 14-inch. So, Nigel, is it going to be that big of a difference going from 14 to 15? I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to feel about this, to be totally honest. No clue. But I have some ideas now, and I will share them with you. So after opening up the Mac for the first time, and you're greeted with a giant slab of cold aluminum, and in this case, the midnight aluminum, which is a fantastic color. I absolutely love it. Pulling it out of the box for the first time and getting to feel the weight of the 15-inch, it still feels extremely portable for how big it is. You can grab this thing, toss it in your bag, and get going, and have very little noticeable additional weight to carry around. It's great. And of course, up next, get this thing opened up and see that screen for the first time. Now, this is the one thing that I am most concerned about. Although I know the screen real estate is going to make a big difference, the quality of the screen is going to be a downgrade, and I can't help but have that stuck in my mind. But as I open it up, I was not disappointed initially, and just the difference in size, it genuinely feels massive compared to the 14, which is kind of a weird head trip to me. What my first impression is that the brightness of the screen is fantastic. It's perfectly clear and sharp. Text appears nice and crisp, and at that point I did have to put them side by side just momentarily to see if the difference was as noticeable as I was thinking it was, just based off of memory. And I'm here to tell you, it's very noticeable. Okay, the LCD screen on the 15 is great. It looks fantastic, and if you're working in a well-lit environment, those blacks are never going to be something that you encounter or have to deal with, especially if you're not watching TV on it. If this is your workhorse, HDR, who cares? Whoop-de-doo. I've got a bright screen that's got great color reproduction, good to go. But if you do watch shows on it, it is noticeably different. The screen on the 15 is great, but it just can't compete with the quality of this mini LED display that Apple's come up with. Now, I will touch on the audio very briefly. This is not something that's super important to me, as I'm typically using studio monitors or headphones, but I don't want to skip out on it in case it's something that's important to you guys. But if audio quality is something that's important to you, you have a much wider dynamic range on the drivers from the Pro compared to the 15-inch Air. You can only fit so big of a driver in there. and that's going to affect your sound. You won't be disappointed with the audio. It sounds perfectly fine. It's still so much better than any other laptop from any other manufacturer that you're ever going to hear. It's just not as good as some of the stuff that Apple has to offer. Another thing to keep in mind is the amount of I/O that you require. Of course, you have two Thunderbolt 4/USB-C ports on this new MacBook Air. Simple solution to that is get a USB hub. There you go. You have as much I/O as you want. There is so much throughput and capability in just one single Thunderbolt 4 port that, you can run anything you want. As long as you go and grab yourself a Thunderbolt/USB-C hub, you'll have all the I/O you need, so no big deal there. Last up on the list is performance. Most people would imagine that this might be at the higher point of my priority list, but it really isn't. And the reason for that is, for the type of work that I'm doing, I'm never pushing these products past 20% of what they're capable of. And at that point, they're all the same. I have a wide array of Apple Silicon products in my house right now, ranging from M1 all the way to M2 Pro. To be honest with you, they all feel exactly the same. And the reason for that is there's no way that the type of thing that I'm going to throw at it will ever get it anywhere near its limits. Us normal guys that are just editing a little video for our YouTube channel, you're not getting anywhere near the limits of this thing. So I care about it, but I don't. I know I have Apple Silicon. I know that it can handle what I throw at it. Doesn't matter if it's M1, 2 Pro, doesn't matter. I can't do anything to stress this thing out, not even close. And you probably won't either. Now, one of the final considerations that most of us have to think about is the cost. In the case of Apple products, generally what I'll do is I'll get an appraisal from Apple with their trade-in program. In the case of my 14-inch MacBook Pro, they're going to give me something to the tune of $850 towards the 15-inch MacBook Air. That brings my grand total of what I owe on this MacBook Air down to $194. See, now purchasing under those circumstances makes you feel much less guilty, and it's much easier to justify to the wife if you have one. If you don't get one. Stop. I'm totally kidding. She's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. In comes my big dilemma, which is, does the additional screen real estate on the 15-inch MacBook Air make up for all of the things that I'll be losing by trading in my 14-inch MacBook Pro? Even sitting here and talking through it in this video, I think it's kind of leaning me towards keeping the MacBook Air. Being able to visualize more of my workspace inside of Ableton Live, being able to visualize more of my timeline in Final Cut Pro, it makes a difference. I really do think this is a great computer, and I would recommend it to almost anybody out there, with the exception of those of you that are really consuming a ton of HDR content. You can't beat the screen on the Pro, but anyone outside of that, this is your machine. I think that you will absolutely love this 15-inch MacBook Air, and it's a great price, it's a great machine, and I just don't have anything bad to say about it. And last but not least, I want to thank each and every one of you for sticking with me through the rest of this video. Hopefully you found it entertaining, or maybe it helped you make up your mind on whether or not it's the right purchase for you. Thanks for sticking around. I hope each and every one of you have a wonderful night wherever you're at. Take care. We'll see you next time. Peace.